The point in my taking two incarnations simultaneously is this. The Southern Island dancer will keep me stable, close to the ground, and simple. The other one will have me hopping. This way I won't lose touch. As the schizoid pattern develops, I may go skitsy with it, but believe me, I won't lose touch. Aka IV paused triumphantly. Indeed, he seemed to have sized this situation up with his customary daring. Candace Helicia, commander of extragalactic monitors, took her turn to respond. Beloved chromocellular Voyager, Aka IV, you of venerable lineage and wisdom, your words are received with single-hearted care. The sacrifice you propose is awesome. To incarnate on a strange planet with no precise knowledge of how many thousands of years you may have to endure before equivalent enlightenment is established is one thing. But to do what you have proposed, to split yourself up into a double incarnation at two widely separate points on an alien planet, that transgresses the bounds of Arcturian outrage. Aka, you are an utter fool, a cosmic dolt, an extragalactic idiot. Come to your senses. Though Candace Helicia sputtered on, Aka IV remained unmoved. Or rather, determination to carry out his plan was not in the least affected. Sensing this, Candace Helicia changed her tone. "Oh, Aka," her light and honey voice conceded, "you're the one out in the field, you call the shots, do what you must. But may I be correct in assuming that, for our purposes, the Southern Island incarnation will be our grounding monitor on Velatropa 24.3. Candace Helicia waited for a reply, but none came. "Aka," she called out once, twice, then a third time, "Aka." But the only sound she received in return was the grainy whoosh of light years of unmediated silence. Then, just as she was about to dampen the control coil with the familiar amber fluid, a coarse burst of laughter crackled through the ruby crystal receiving coil, sending a lightning arc right up to Candace Helicia's flabbergasted spore fronts. Wanjana Puntajarpa riding the rainbow serpent to the Yubai mountain cave of dreaming. We are here, we are both here. Puntajarpa in the Southern Island, Renutet, the skywalking serpent in the black land of the Upper Nile. We are both here. As she dampened the receiving coil, Candace Helicia chuckled to herself. Well, Aka, as you sing the stanzas of Velatropa's rhythmic blend, may we continue to learn of them as well. For well over 6,000 Velatropa 24.3 years, we monitored the heroic Aka IV's double manifestations. That of the great southern island remained as Aka himself had predicted, stable to the point of boredom, yet because of that, an excellent transmitter. From this one we learned of such strange things as kangaroos and boomerangs, kundelas and katages. In one incarnation after another, Aka, now known as Puntajarpa, proved himself to be an obedient keeper of tribal lore and initiatory secrets. The instrument Aka used for contacting us was the T-Juringa stone, a tactile maze-like device for placing its users in a trance, transporting them to what they called the dream time. We all appreciated Aka's wisdom in choosing these highly conservative two-leggeds of the great southern island for maintaining communication with us at Arcturian Hierarch Central. Nevertheless, it was not at all apparent to us how, after so many thousands of years in this simple but desolate and highly isolated outpost, he was going to reunite himself with what he had come to call his civilized double. Ah, that civilized double. Renutet the Egyptian, as he was first known, proved to be as sly and clever as Puntajarpa was tenaciously steadfast in the old ways. Incarnating for close to 2,000 years in the black land of the Nile, Aka's other half learned well the craft and wisdom of the builders. Then, exemplifying the mysterious lore of death and rebirth which constituted the deepest wisdom of these builders of the black land, the old Galactic scout jumped track. We next picked up transmissions from a certain Enugil of Babylonia, an organizer of weaving guilds, scribe and tax collector. Allowing himself to be slain in battle some 12 incarnations later, the extragalactic gnome was next heard from as a master of ceremonies in the imperial court of the great central land called China. Anahuac Tihuan Tasuyu, Magadha, and Macedonia Anywhere on Velatropa 24.3, where the builders established their guilds came to be home for the ocean-skimming, continent-hopping Aka IV. The Art Planet chronicles the making of the fifth ring. Indeed, as the years wore on, Aka IV's facility in attaining transmutation after transmutation on Velatropa 24.3, Earth, as he had become fond of calling it, almost came to be his undoing. It was after he had pressed himself into the service of a certain king of Central Asia that the keepers of the Arcturian archives ceased to personally supervise the activities of both of Aka IV's Velatropan manifestations. The reasoning behind this decision was simple. Aka IV clearly must have known what he was up to. Such marvelous ability had he realized, even by his own admission, that the Arcturians of 108X placed his monitoring on synthematic remote. Besides, other of the Arcturian chromocellular brigades, emboldened by the example of Aka IV, now needed more attention than the foolhardy Aka now deserved, or demanded. It was none other than Candace Helicia herself who idly sauntered into the synthematic monitoring unit one day, some 400 years later, only to discover the rupture in communications that had occurred between Velatropa 24.3 and Arcturus 108X. Aka the Blessed, the primal galactic wonder, warrior of Starfield's most remote gone. All systems registering subvital. Aka IV, gone. Candace Helicia's broadcast aroused the energy banks of the first 8 quadrants of Arcturus 108X Red City into a condition of high alert. Following a swiftly organized council meeting of unit heads, a major squadron was dispatched immediately to Velatropa 24.3. Never before had the ejection of so many space cocoons on a single synchrotronic transmission beam been so reverentially attended. For great and far had the fame of Aka IV spread throughout the bright expanse of the Arcturian galaxy. Though a significant number of years had passed since Aka IV himself had first commanded a small squad to survey Velatropa 24.3, the change in the atmosphere, nevertheless, took us all by surprise. Aka's initial reports of a polar ice-capped art planet possessed of capriciously changing, yet ultimately harmonic weather patterns, no longer held true. What we beheld instead was something far more grim. Obscuring what once had been verdant meadows, starkly tranquil desert terrain, ice mountain crags and seemingly infinite seas rolling from shore to distant shore, was an atmospheric warp, a displacement of the spheric rings fueled by burnt-off carbon monoxide, radioactivity, and other noxious particles. The cause of this disturbing, antibiotropic displacement we found to be in the dense network of combustuaries that darkened the Velatropan landscape, particularly of its northern hemisphere. Worse than this biochemical plague, however, was the intensely random electromagnetic bombardment, the cacophony of sounds and attempted communications that assaulted our brigade. This activity seemed to be most intense at the fourth, or outermost atmospheric ring of Velatropa 24.3. Though we deigned from time to lower our frequency of vibration and hence risk becoming visible to the odiously noisome Velatropans, we found that such exercises made us vulnerable to high-flying military observations in the form of spy planes and satellites. We also learned that our existence, whenever it was perceived, was almost unanimously interpreted as a threat to the planetary system. Flying saucers and UFOs, unidentified flying objects, were the most common and childishly derogatory terms applied to our mission. Despite such hostile reception, while brushing aside the ghastly thought that Aka IV had erred in describing Velatropa 24 as an art planet, we avoided as much as possible any direct contact with the Velatropans. Single-minded in our purpose, we did manage to establish contact with Aka IV, at least one half of him. This was the manifestation that had been recently dislocated from his ancient southern island abode. He was now a case worker in an alcoholic treatment center in one of the large urban centers of that land, Sydney. Can't say much now, the inveterate Punta-Jarpa/Aka warned us. Things have gotten very tight around here, but hang in there. As soon as I've emerged from this damnable war zone, I know I'll get in touch with my double. Until then, you should go into hyper-tranquility. Don't worry, though. When the old Aka meets the old Aka, won't that be the day? This old Earth, Velatropa 24.3, according to you Arcturian straight-liners, this old Earth will see its roundness ringed with chromocellular light. Setting our fleet in high-vibration hypertrank, we followed the orders of the venerable Commandante. The war zone to which he had alluded broke out with unrestrained vigor not too long after. As much as some of us felt like intervening, we held back, though great pity and sorrow shook us to see Velatropa 24.3 enveloped in such a cataclysmic fever. Volcanic eruptions, radioactive clouds, columns of fire rising from the center of the sea, and the massive electromagnetic storms breaking from on high. Monitoring all of this activity over a period of some 25 Velatropan years, it was with great relief that we observed the subsidence of the tumult. All the while we wondered at the heroic endurance of Aka IV to have undertaken the tamming of such a turbulent planet.